Hi, I'm Michael Bean. This is your myfreeactingclass.com lesson for Wednesday, August the 12th. One of the questions from the group yesterday, was how do we stay motivated? And that was one of the things that you wanted to talk about. So today I'm presenting some resources. I'm starting with a man named Ira Glass. Now, Ira Glass has an incredibly successful now podcast. Previously, it was a radio show called This American Life. And many years ago, he was speaking to a group of film students and recorded this video, which I think is incredibly relevant for, and it's directed specifically at filmmakers, but I think it's incredibly relevant for actors as well. And it's the kind of thing that I wish that I had been exposed to particularly when I was finishing high school and going into theater school, and was really struggling with staying motivated, with knowing the kind of acting that I wanted to do, and feeling like my own skills were not a match for that.
Tells people who are beginners, and I really wish somebody had told this to me, is that if you're watching this video, somebody wants to make videos, right? And all of us who do creative work, we get into it, and we get into it because we have good taste. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to make TV because you love TV, you know what I mean? Because there's stuff that you just love, okay? So you've got really good taste, and you get into this thing that I don't even know how to describe, but it's like there's a gap. That for the first couple of years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good, okay? It's not that great. It's really not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not quite that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, your taste is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell that it's still sort of crappy. A lot of people never get past that phase. A lot of people at that point, they quit. And the thing I would just say to you with all my heart is that most everybody I know who does interesting creative work, they went through a phase of years where they had really good taste. They could tell what they were making wasn't as good as they wanted it to be. They knew it felt short. Some of us could admit that to ourselves, and some of us are a little less able to admit that to themselves. But we knew it didn't have this special thing that we wanted to have. And the thing I would say to you is everybody goes through that. And for you to go through it, if you're going through it right now, if you're just getting out of that phase, if you're just starting off and you're entering into that phase, you gotta know that's totally normal. And the most important possible thing you can do is do a lot of work. Do a huge volume of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month you know you're gonna finish one story. You know what I mean? Whatever it's gonna be, you create the deadline. It's best if you have somebody who's waiting for work for you, somebody who's expecting it from you, even if it's not somebody who pays you, but that you're in a situation where you have to turn out the work. Because it's only by actually going through a volume of work that you're actually going to catch up and close that gap. And the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. In my case, I do a national radio show, right? I'm making my living in this. I've been doing this for a long time. And when the Peabody Award won all sorts of prizes, 1.7 million people listen to our show. And they listen almost to the entire show. And people love our show, right? Like the show that I make with my coworkers. And so I'm in a place I'm done, right? I've mastered this thing. I gotta tell you, I took longer to figure out how to do this than anybody I've ever met. I'm gonna play you a clip of tape from my 8th year. I started in public radio when I was 19 at NPR's network headquarters in Washington. It's a big news organization. Had a really peachy set of jobs. And I was always a good tape cutter, but I was a horrible reporter. That's horrible thing that you're setting out to do with these video pods. And so this is a tape from year 8.
It's not such a long way from the local grocery store to the international debate over whether sorghum and meat production are causing corn to decline in Latin America.
All right, that debate. We were talking about that at dinner.
There's a general air of prosperity here, partly thanks to Mexican imports of U.S. grains, which help boost our farm economy. Mexico is now one of our biggest grain customers, buying $500 million to $1 billion worth every year, including corn to feed its people and sorghum to feed its livestock.
What am I talking about? I don't even understand. I wrote this. I don't even understand what it is. And okay, also, every part of this is ill-conceived, okay? like the writing is horrible. You can't even follow what I'm talking about. And then the performance, like, okay, just a little tip if you're, calling for broadcast, you don't underline every third word for emphasis because it sounds really unnatural. What you want to do is you want to talk the way people normally talk.
This helps cut our own trade deficit.
Okay, you want to talk the way people normally talk. Like so much of this is incredibly relevant for film and TV actors.
It benefits everyone in the U.S. economy. But in Mexico, this policy has led to fewer tortillas for the poor and unappetizing tortillas for everyone else.
Again, like, this is like the most moronic kind of, like, it doesn't mean anything. And it's hard. It's actually kind of an interesting story, which I'll say to you in a sentence, which is, because Mexico produces a lot of stuff that they ship to the United States, tomatoes and all sorts of really wonderful food that we eat here, they don't make enough corn for their own people. That's the story. So because for us to get really great tomatoes or semi-great tomatoes year-round, basically Mexicans eat worse. That's the story. And it's kind of an interesting idea, right? Like, that's actually sort of like a cool idea, executed in the worst possible way. Okay, so this is like year 8. I'm 27 years old when this is happening. Like, I'm not a beginner. Like, I'm deep into it. And I guess I'm saying, like, it takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while, and you just have to fight your way through that. Okay? You will be fierce. You will be a warrior, and you will make things that aren't as good as you know in your heart you want them to be. And you just make one after another. Like, I think they're your way through that. And I guess I'm saying, like, it takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while, and you just have to fight your way through that. Okay? You will be fierce. You will be a warrior, and you will make things that aren't as good as you know in your heart you want them to be. And you just make one after another. Okay?
Right. So obviously, the whole series is wonderful and really worth looking at. I'll put the link into the chat window, and that should take you to the rest of the series if you're like, who is this Ira Glass guy? And I want to hear more about what he says about making work. His basic point, is that, which I repeated for you in case anybody missed it, is that it's going to take a while, and you just fight through it. And I think that his piece of critique, or his piece of analysis around what happens at the beginning, where part of the thing that got you interested in acting is seeing what good acting really is, and seeing acting that inspires you, and looking at actors whose work you admire, and developing excellent taste in that process. And there is going to be a gap, and I actually think it's longer than just a few years. I think that when you are learning to be a professional actor, it can be 5 years, it can be 10 years, there can be like quite a gap where you are like, I know in my head what good work looks like and sounds like and feels like, and when I watch my own work, when I listen to myself as I'm performing, it's just not there. And just like he says in that video, that's where most people quit. And this is where I think that is particularly difficult for adults who are approaching this. Not to disparage the work that young people are doing, because I work with incredibly focused, disciplined, skilled young actors all the time, and I'm so impressed by the level of focus they bring to it. That was something that I really struggled with as a young actor, and it's one of the things that keeps me happy in my job is supporting folks who have that focus and find that focus, and helping people find it for themselves. But if you happen to be a young person in school, then you are not also dealing with this expectation that maybe you should have this all figured out. Whereas if you are coming to this, in your 20s or 30s or 40s, you are going to run into this cultural expectation, that like maybe you should have this all figured out by now. Which is not fair, which is not true. The truth is, learning any new skill, there's going to be this period of time where you have this felt sense of like, I know what good work looks and sounds and feels like, and I can't quite, I'm not quite there yet. And so some findings to the thing that gets you through that. And this is where I wanted to share some of the wisdom, both from actors who I've interviewed here on in these free acting lessons, and also from a casting director. So the first one from from actress Rekha Sharma. This was quite some time ago now. I asked her if she had advice that she would go back and give her younger self, from this, place of experience. So Rekha was one of the leads on Battlestar. She was an actor in the new Star Trek series. She has an impressive career, and I'll give the link to her video from the archive if you want to go and watch that.
Just follow your heart, do what you love, just follow the fun, have fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right, and really, I am going to at some point make a montage of so many people, from casting directors to actors to directors to producers, who have come through. Like those of you who are here for Tina Pem, who's our guest, not last Friday, but the Friday before. She said, you just have to love it. And I think that's been a really consistent through line. That acting is because acting is an art form ultimately. And your love for it comes through in the work. That anything you are doing to feed that ultimately is in service of your long-term acquisition of this skill, right? And and as a teacher of young people, I've seen this over time, is that somebody comes in and is like just really good at some part of it right away. If I put that person next to somebody who just is really like loves it enough that they want to keep doing it, the second person will very quickly surpass the first person in skill. It's just because they like it, because they're enjoying it, because they're finding a way to like make it fun for themselves. That skill as an actor seems magical because there is a multi-billion-dollar industry devoted to making it look magical. They, of course, they're not going to show you when one of the actors forgets a line. If there's even a moment, where their eyes are like, eh, the editor's going to cut away to Elaine's face going, that's really interesting, Michael Biehn, and they're going to cut back to my face. They're going to take only the best takes. In the billions of dollars, devoted to making this look magical. And so this is very interesting balance to strike as an actor between remembering that the technical side of things, those people will make it look magical, but for you it is not magical. It is a skill, and if you are excited about it, if you love it, you can acquire it. It just takes practice. And the thing in my experience that feeds that practice the best is finding a way to make it fun for yourself. Right, is finding something that you genuinely love about it. Right, if you approach that practice from a place of ruthless discipline, and I have seen that be successful for some people, but very few. Like you have to be somebody who kind of loves ruthless discipline. And if that's you, oh my God, how can I get some of what you've got? If you're like, yeah, I love ruthless discipline. You know what I love? It's waking up at 5 a.m. and doing 3 more hours of monologues. And it's like, oh my God, just like bottle that and like give me some of it because I don't have that. Right? But again, I would say that even that falls into the category of like, what's fun for you? Like what do you love? If you love ruthless discipline, great, approach it from that way. But otherwise, you're going to have to be creative. You're going to have to, go, okay, well, what part of it do I actually love? How there are a lot of ways up the mountain. Like which ways are interesting to me? What can I do that might make it fun for me to practice? Put some into this skill every day. And so a little bit from casting director Jackie Lind. You can see when I interview an actor, I get that many people. When I interview a casting director, I get this many people. Jackie's right down here with the bad lighting and the crazy art behind her.
It's about, again, being you, the best you can be. That gives you that. That's why when you come into auditions and you see the same kids all the time, you can't say to yourself, well, I'm not going to get it because they're here and they get it all the time. That's not how it works. It's not how it works at all. It's about coming in and realizing that you're there and you have as big a shot as anybody else there, regardless of their credits. And I have cast kids many times, some in major reoccurring roles, on their first audition. So it's possible. And you need to know that you have to think that, and you have to believe that, and you have to have fun, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to like yourself. It's not about not liking your hair, or not liking your clothes, or not liking how you look. It's just about liking who you are. And if you like yourself, you know what? Everyone else is going to feel that energy, and they're going to want you in that movie, or the next movie, or the next movie after that. So you just have to remember that you are good enough. You don't have to be or look like anybody else. Just be you.
Right. So you see where this like compilation of people we've interviewed might be useful in case you're like, oh man, like, am I doing this right? You know, like somebody else has a strategy that works better than my strategy. You know, I'm just going to continue to encourage you to come back to like, are you enjoying what you're doing? You know, and what might help you enjoy the practice? Like what? And so something that I've been thinking about since yesterday, because, you know, and if any of you have had more ideas since yesterday's lesson about other things you'd like me to cover, you know, is this thing that Ira Glass says in his video is create a huge volume of work. You know, so the other thing that came up yesterday that I've been thinking about ever since was, you know, Kevin said, you know, audition tips, like one audition tips, you know, like I had this audition, you know, and they like, and it was just one line and I didn't know what to do before and after, you know, and it was baffling for me initially because I'm like, that's all I've been covering. Like, what do you mean you want audition tips? Like, I feel like a broken record where I'm just like repeating the same things over and over and over again. And I realized that like, it's just not enough to hear it. It's not enough to see other people practice it. Like you actually have to practice it to get this thing in your body. You know, that idea of like, it looks magical. I believe that the way that we get there is by internalizing the skill enough that it looks effortless, right? So, you know, Caden, is it okay if I talk about you for a second, you know, and use you as an example? Caden, you're looking a little spaced out. You know, Caden, can I talk about you for a second? Yeah, that's okay. Okay, great. You know, so Caden's 7, right? And so Caden, you know, is that right? You're 7? Yeah. Almost. Okay, a little bit.
Turning 8.
Oh my gosh. Right. So, you know, Caden is just on that edge, you know, where his, you know, and it's really, really apparent when I work with actors who are like, you know, say 5, you know, which is the youngest, you know, that I allow into classes, you know, at Biz Studio, where he's not going to remember almost anything, you know, about why he's doing something from lesson to lesson. Like that's not the goal. You know, he's not going to. Like that's just developmentally, it's very unlikely. And especially with somebody 5 or 6, you're like, here's what an eye line is. Here's what the lines are. They're not going to remember. You know, their mom's going to say like, what did you do in class today? And they're going to be like, I ran around. You know, they're just going to remember one fun thing, you know, but the details are just gone. But what happens is, and I think it's most clear seeing somebody who's really young, is that over time, if they keep coming back week after week after week, they don't remember it here, but they remember it here. And they start to show up and just stand on the mark. And they start to show up and stand in a medium close-up. And they start to look, you know, just this side of the camera and just that side of the camera. And they start to just do the things. And they don't know why, you know, and then everybody else experiences them as more talented, you know, because they are precocious, like they're at a level of skill that is abnormal for somebody that age. But it's just practice. And I think that for me, that's really instructive of what we're trying to do to ourselves as adults. That is, as long as you are at the point where you is still requiring conscious effort to think about these skills, then it's very difficult to go in and make them look effortless on camera. To be like, I don't know, this is just what good acting is, right? You know, to have as much of your attention as possible available to like love what you're doing and go in there and connect and tell the story. That's what we want. You know, and so witnessing actors like Caden, you know, I think is a great way to remember that's what we're all trying to do. You know, is we're all trying to take this, like the inner child that we're still packing around with us, you know, and go like, hey, like we can make this fun. Like we just gotta, you know, get this sort of structure in place first. Yeah, and so with that in mind, um, and I think that trying to realize, the thing that Kevin asked for was like audition tips and tricks. And I tried this a couple of weeks ago, or maybe several months ago, but what might be really useful is if I gave you something in advance, and on Monday was like, here's a thing, everybody set up your camera so you're standing, before class, because that keeps taking a lot of time in the Monday and Tuesday lessons, to be like, I pick a volunteer and like, there's like a bunch of you left your videos on, so like you want to practice, but like, I guess maybe everybody's Canadian and you don't want to be like me, except for Caden, because he's like, that sounds like fun, right? Like, but the lesson there is that like, that's great. That's what we want, but if I gave you something on Monday, it was like, hey, everybody like have your camera set up to be standing and let's spend one of these lessons just practicing. The other thing that I could do is pick something a little bit longer, and Maddox did this for me once, is I picked something longer and was like, tape this, and then we'll watch the tape as part of a lesson, so that in the spirit of giving you not just analysis and ideas and information, but genuinely giving you a chance to practice and be accountable to somebody outside yourself, giving you like one line or two lines, that you could practice here with me, and then for those of you who wanted it, giving you, half a page so that you could tape it the way you would tape a professional audition, on your own time, any time in the week. But then we could have a lesson where I was like, cool, I've finally gotten 6 of these from people. That's enough to spend half an hour on. So here's Deborah's, and we're going to look at like, the white balance is still off, so she's still like so the color's still not right, and we need more light in her eyes, and they're like some technical details, but also acting details. And I could go in and say, and if I was coaching that actor, here's as a coach, what I would say, and give you some of those notes, and I think that might also be useful. So I'm going to keep thinking about that and bring it in next week. I like having a plan up to a point, and then I really like allowing for flexibility. So which is why when Liz couldn't make today, I was like, well, cool. I like talking to people. I have some things that I want to share. I'll find something. And so now that I'm talking it out loud, maybe the sensible thing to do would be to like put that out there and say, sort of, here's a thing, record it, and get them, and then as soon as I've got 6 of them, then I'll run a lesson. So that it's not like, let's all spend half an hour looking at Candy's tape in like obsessive fine point detail, because that's not going to feel great for Candy either. Ideally what you want is to watch like 6 tapes so you can go like, oh wow, 5 people made exactly the same mistakes. 5 people came in and gave no moment before, and look, Eve did give us a moment before. Like, she did make some choice about like where she is and physically what she's doing, and look, that makes her tape so much more interesting. Even though everybody's going out for the same 3 lines, so instead of me just telling you that, I think that if you both had to put something of your own on the line for it, and allow it to be imperfect, and like get a little bit of support here from the group, and also from me in like doing that imperfect thing, and then got to like witness an example, by seeing them 6 of them in a row, that might really like land the idea. So okay, I've talked myself into it. Like, I didn't have it clearly laid out before this lesson, but I've talked myself into it. I'll bring it up, next Monday, and then we'll see how long it takes for you to do 6. Christina and Olivia and Eve have volunteered to be my guinea pigs. And I'm so torn because I would love to do an in-person tape, and I think maybe we'll just push that until next week, because I had Dr. Alan Franklin volunteer to be our guest on Friday. So one of the other things that came up recently was when I was like, what kind of guests would you like to have? Somebody said, I'd love somebody to talk about audition anxiety. So this guy, actually, he's a psychiatrist. He's a teacher in the faculty of psychiatry at UBC. His daughter is a very, very successful young actor who's been taking my classes since she was like 4 or 5, and now she's maybe like 12 or 13. And he last year started running sample workshops, on audition, on how to deal with audition anxiety for actors, because he's had so much exposure with his daughter and has really wanted to like wrap his head around the industry. And I believe was also like counseling, actors, locally, like referred by the union, and so I emailed him and he said, yeah, I'd love to. How's this Friday? So I think that, we'll probably do that this Friday because, we've got the opportunity and he's rad, and like take advantage of him while he's here. Like I'm still always here. But like, I can work with you all anytime, but like, let's get Alan while we can. So I'm excited to see what he has to say about tools for actors. And even if some of them are familiar, his experience, and his exposure hopefully will give the things that he says weight. It might be that he doesn't say anything that like rocks your world, but it might be that he says something really simple that you're like, that here you've been like, yeah, that's a great idea, but you haven't actually tried on the practice, right? And I think that that's ultimately where I come back to in terms of skill acquisition is what takes it from, yes, that's a great idea, and to practicing it enough to get it in your body. So does anybody have a question in the last 1 minute and 13 seconds?
Michael, I do.
Oh, yes.
I don't know how to get that thing off of my Facebook or off of my page. I've tried the color thing that's there.
Deborah, I'm so sorry. I'm not an expert, with
Yeah.
tech. Probably what's happening is your camera is automatically adjusting it. So if you tried, for instance, taking it to different parts of your house and different light, you would see that it would automatically adjust. So probably it's a combination of your light and the color of your backdrop.
Okay, great. Because I'm facing a big window, right? So thanks.
I wish I could say I know exactly what it is.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like this is my thing as a teacher is like incredibly complex answers to simple questions. Somebody's like, hey, there's like this really simple question. I'm like, great. There's 7 different ways that I know you can do of that, and then there's these other 3 people whose work you could go look at. And I think for me that's an antidote to the conviction that I hear. And we can ask Alan about this, on Friday. But recently, I was listening. I told you that I listened to an interview by this guy named Dr. Mark Beckett, who wrote a book called Permission to Feel, and he was talking about identifying feelings. He said anxiety, the whole category of anxiety feelings it's about uncertainty. I don't know what's going to happen. I was like, right, okay, this is why the baseline anxiety in the world is so high right now, because like. I suppose we could have more uncertainty about what's going to happen, but like not a lot. And so with that in mind, I think that uncertainty is just really hard for people. And one of the ways that actors typically, and even acting teachers address that is by choosing to be certain. And especially successful actors tend to do that by looking at their own career and their own successes and not attributing any of that to randomness and just going like, yeah, here's the thing to do. You know what? I'm totally sure. The way to be a good actor, the way to have success, is like this thing that I did and it worked. And teachers can be prone to that as well, because being uncertain sucks. Right, like, and students come to a teacher with uncertainty and say, like, "I'm uncertain. Can you take it away?" My hope for my students is that lessons don't take away your uncertainty necessarily, but instead help build your tolerance for it. Because I think that moves you towards being the kind of artists that I would love to see more of in the world. Ones who can handle complexity and handle uncertainty. And not be sure, but still move forward in making art anyway. Okay, there we go. So today was Ira Glass plus philosophy, Michael Bean's ideas. Tomorrow we've got Michelle talking to us about voiceover. So y'all can feel free to leave your videos off for that one if you want to like really have the voiceover experience. But we're going to ask for your voices. right? Those of you who are like, oh man, I just don't want him to ask me to stand up or like comment on my lighting. Great, it's voiceover. Instead, I'll just be like, hey, person who like we never see, if you want just to let us hear your voice and try this line of dialogue. And I'll be there too because Michelle wants a little bit of backup in understanding sort of how best to recruit you to do demos. Because I think that like y'all are like polite and Canadian, and she was polite and Canadian, and so she said that like she really enjoyed her lesson last week, and that also she was like, well, they didn't seem to like want to jump in, and I was like, Michelle, you just have to pick them. You just have to say, hey, Elaine, like, here's this line, you want to do it? And if you do that, they will. Like, so I'm just going to be there to like, help coax you into practicing a little bit more tomorrow. I'm excited about it. All right. Thanks for a great class, and I will see some of you again tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.